Doing business outside of the cultural and social setting in which a company was built and became effective is the focus of this brief introduction. In a globalized, flat world, does culture really have an impact on efficiencies and productivity? We believe it does. When FedEx recognized that the domestic North American market was saturated, they wisely chose to expand overseas. However, their centralized or hub and spoke delivery system that was so successful domestically was inappropriate for overseas distribution. In addition, they failed to consider important cultural differences. For instance, in Spain, the workers preferred very late office hours, a normal practice in their cultural context. And in Russia, the workers took the truck cleaning soap home with them because soap was in short supply in the country. Now, organizational efficiencies and productivity goals that are designed for one cultural setting didn't translate when it was exported. FedEx finally shut down over 100 European operations after $1.2 billion in losses. The process of globalizing operations is always led by human beings, whether executives, managers, or line employees, and human beings are profoundly shaped by cultural patterns. The FedEx story is not an unusual example. Recent research indicates that 30 to 50% of American project managers fail to achieve objectives in international cross-cultural assignments. We can probably assume that this kind of failure rate is not restricted to Americans alone. Today's global economy has created a more complex and dynamic environment in which most firms must learn to compete effectively to achieve sustainable growth. But the global environment has not only changed the way business is conducted, it has also changed the criteria of effectiveness for the firm's employees. What does it look like to be effective in this cultural setting? What must we do differently regarding cultural differences to become effective again? But you might ask, is culture really as important as you're suggesting? I want us to think of culture as software of the mind. That is, the operating system that shapes how we think, what we value, how we organize, how we speak, and how we behave. Culture does, in fact, impact our economic bottom line. Employees who can productively manage through the complex, changing, and often confusing cultural environments in which you want to do business are critical for a firm's ongoing effectiveness. We'd like to introduce a specific intercultural competence tool as it applies to global leadership styles. You can find this material in the work of social scientist Geert Hofstede's work regarding the dimensions of culture. These are kind of cultural discernment markers. One dimension we'll look at here is power distance, which focuses on the degree of equality or inequality between people in a country's society. An understanding of different management styles are going to be required to function with competence when working in settings that are culturally different from one's own. Let me illustrate. On the left are countries where high power distance is noted as a pattern of cultural behavior. On the right are countries with low power distance. In cultures with high power distance, inequalities among people are expected. The culture, and therefore its companies, operate with a strong sense of hierarchy, where value is based on status, wealth, age, and education. And centralization, with strong control in senior managers and head office, is a normal practice. In cultures with low power distance, where inequalities are minimized, workplaces are independent. The worth or value of individuals is based on performance, not status. Decentralization is valued, giving managers and branches greater control over their own work. So what this means is that a leadership style that works in India is likely to be similar in Oman, but may be seriously out of place in Germany or Canada, for instance. So we have an intuitive understanding that these are real factors. But how does this knowledge impact our bottom line? What are the questions that we need to ask? Well, when we get into a new market, because of our track record elsewhere, are we able to sustain our productivity standards in this new, unfamiliar cultural context? That's the FedEx scenario. And do our directors, our managers, effectively manage employees of cultures different from their own? That has to do with the success rate for expat managers. Here's our key insight. We believe we need to put culture on the table. We have to create structures to identify and deal with specific cultural problems that the company might face. And we have to identify candidates who already have high cultural intelligence and incorporate this cultural intelligence into our normal training processes and related pay incentives. Cultural competence is emerging as a key factor for effective engagement with clients from diverse cultures. In the past, it was thought that just good business sense and professional competency was sufficient for globalizing companies. What's becoming increasingly clear is that it isn't sufficient. We believe that technical proficiency in your business, your understanding of your product, needs to be coupled with cultural competence. It's this combination that provides an effective engagement with clients from diverse cultures. We would like the opportunity to discuss with you further how Culture Shift can work with your organization to develop intercultural competence in your leadership cohort, so as to enable your ongoing engagement with clients and coworkers from diverse backgrounds.